Welcome to the Online Business Assistance Program, a comprehensive guide on how to navigate Nevada's contractor's license application. In this presentation, we'll walk through the key steps involved in the application process. This includes how to choose the correct license classification, determine the appropriate monetary limit, and understand the requirements for trade and management qualifiers. We'll also cover financial statements, background disclosures, and helpful tips to make sure your application is complete prior to submittal. In addition, we will review licensing fees, bonding and insurance requirements, the Residential Recovery Fund, and Assembly Bill 39 compliance information. Before we begin, please note that the information in this presentation is meant to provide general guidance about the contractor licensing process. It is not a legal interpretation of the law and may not reflect the most recent legal changes. The information here should not be considered legal advice. If you have questions about how Nevada law applies to your situation, you may want to consult an attorney or review Nevada Revised Statutes Chapter 624 and Nevada Administrative Code Chapter 624. The first step in the application process is obtaining a business license. To do this, you must register your business with the Nevada Secretary of State and obtain a Nevada Business ID. This service is accessible through their website, Silver Flume. Before submitting your registration, it's important to check that your business name is not too similar to another existing business. When choosing a business name, make sure it is clearly different from names used by existing licensed contractors. Checking this early can help you avoid delays or possible rejection later in the process. After registering your business, the next step is determining the correct license classification. Nevada contractor licenses are divided into categories based on the type of work a contractor performs. You can review all available classifications in Nevada Administrative Code Chapter 624.140 through 858. If you're still unsure, you may email our class determination listed below with a detailed description of the work you intend on performing, and they will help pinpoint the best classification for you in writing. Our online classification summary includes primary classifications and sub-classifications that provide a description of the work you can do under each one. The following image provides an example of how our online classification summary appears on our website. For example, the A classification, known as General Engineering, includes several sub-classifications that define more specific types of work. C classifications typically cover specialty trades such as electrical, plumbing, and other skilled services. Once again, you may choose to apply for the full primary classification that will allow you to do all of the subtrades listed. Or if you're interested in one of the sub-classifications, for example, plumbing, you may apply for the C1D. You may only perform the specific scope of work in the subclassification that you're applying for. In our classification summary, you may find that a few classifications will not have subclassifications. Therefore, they will only serve as a primary license. Choosing the correct classification is important to make sure you're properly licensed for the work your business plans to perform and which trade your application will be geared towards. Some applicants may want to apply for more than one classification. If you plan to apply for multiple primary licenses, there will be a separate application and a separate fee for each primary classification. You are limited to performing work listed under the subclassification applied for. Please be sure to follow the same classification structure. For example, if you're applying for multiple subclassifications under the same primary trade, that is one application and one fee. Subclassifications that fall under different primary classifications must be listed on a separate application for each primary license. If experience requirements are met, licenses issued for subclassifications may expand their scope to other subclassifications within the same primary license, or broaden to the full primary classification. The requirements for a broadening of classification include documentation of relevant experience for the trade qualifier and a $250 application fee. The B classification generally applies to building construction that includes 3 or more unrelated trades. Per statute, B license holders cannot self-perform electrical, HVAC, fire protection, or plumbing unless they obtain these specialty licenses. This applies to any of the subclassifications under the B license. All general B and B2 classifications must show experience in the construction of buildings from the ground up for at least 4 full years or more, not just remodeling or additions. The general B classification requires construction on structures over 3 stories above the ground, whereas the B2 classification is geared towards residential and small commercial that cannot exceed 3 stories tall or 1 story below the ground. The minimum monetary limit for both the General B and B2 is $200,000. For projects that do not include ground-up construction, you may reference our B6 commercial remodeling or B7 residential remodeling license classifications. The new B7 restricted classification is designated for residential remodeling. This license allows contractors to perform residential remodeling work on existing detached, standalone single-family residences or a single-family residential unit within a structure that does not extend more than 3 stories above the ground and or 1 story below the ground. The B7 does not authorize the increase of an existing living space. It is strictly to remodel the existing residential structure. Our new restricted license will allow contractors to gain valuable trade experience, apply for a license after 2 years, and increase the monetary value of projects from $1,000 to a maximum of $7,000. The requirements are as described: at least 2 years of work experience of a particular type or classification, alternative training in a program recognized by the board, the completion of any other program or obtaining any other qualification acceptable to the board. A business course must be completed current within 1 year of the application date, or a similar curriculum that meets the requirements established. The payment of any required fees for the issuance of the license, and a surety bond in the amount of $2,000. Depending on the structure of your business, certain individuals must be listed in Section 4 of the application. For a corporation, that would include your president, secretary, treasurer. If you're a limited liability company, this includes your managers, managing members, or members. Sole proprietorships are single-person companies that consist of the individual owner. General partnerships include the registration of your general partners, your limited partners, or whoever you may register with the Secretary of State. Each contractor license must also identify qualified individuals on the application. You will choose a management law qualifier and a trade qualifier. This can be the same person or 2 different individuals. While there are no requirements for who takes the law exam, trade qualifiers must demonstrate the 4 years of experience at the journeyman, foreman, or supervisory level in the applying classification within the last 15 years. Again, principals and qualifiers share responsibility for maintaining compliance with licensing requirements. The required documents detailing the trade qualifier's work experience consist of 4 certification of work experience forms and a resume. The qualifier may fill out the resume giving us a work history of the trade they're applying for, the timeframes, and a detailed description of the work they have performed. The certificates must be completed by someone who can confirm your work experience, such as past or current employers, other subcontractors they may have worked with, as well as clients that may verify projects performed by the trade employee. These forms may include work performed in Nevada or out of state. Family members may only complete these forms if they were the applicant's employer. The trade qualifier cannot complete these forms themselves. Applicants must submit 4 certificates from 4 different certifiers with a detailed description of the work performed, along with a resume showing their experience. Please note that these forms must come from 4 different sources, not the same individual or company. The 4 submitted forms should equate to a cumulative of 4 full years or more documented experience within the past 15 years. If you're applying for the C1 plumbing or C2 electrical trade and you hold a current master's certification, you may include a copy of the signed master's card in your application. While this waives the 4 work certifications, you will still be required to submit the resume of experience. If you have any qualifying military experience and training, you may submit a description of relevant job duties during your service. Feel free to contact our office and speak to our veteran, military spouses, and training program coordinator if you have any questions about your trade experience in the military and how you can apply it to your application. Any educational and related training experience may be submitted and reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Work certificate forms will still be required to contribute to the full 4 years of experience. PSI Exam Center administers all licensing exams. However, the exam cannot be taken until after the application has been submitted. Once your application is received, the Nevada State Contractors Board will send you an exam eligibility letter. That includes your candidate identification number. You will then schedule your exam directly with PSI Examination Services. PSI provides information about exam fees, study materials, and reference guides. You may utilize the License Examination tab on our website to view the Candidate Information Bulletin and other tabs related to PSI. Their Candidate Information Bulletin outlines the exam format, number of questions, passing score, time limits, and subject areas. You will have 6 months from the date the application is received to complete all testing. Each exam information bulletin includes a list of reference material available to prepare for the examination. The Nevada State Contractors Board does not administer the exam or provide testing material. Licensure by endorsement provides the opportunity of using an equivalent trade exam passed in an endorsing state to meet the trade exam or experience requirements in Nevada. You must be licensed for the past 4 years in the participating endorsing state without lapse or disciplinary actions. To qualify, you must submit a request for verification of licensure form included in Section 9 of the application. This form is completed by the agency responsible for the out-of-state license. Once the form is completed, you will receive a sealed envelope that must be included with your application upon submittal. Please refrain from opening the sealed envelope, but you may keep the copy included for your records. Endorsement is used only for the waiver of a trade exam. The business and law exam will still be taken. With this, you are still required to submit a resume of experience showcasing the 4 years or more in the applied trade. The following states are the acceptable endorsing opportunities available. This process is specific to certain trades for the following states. Please check our state equivalency chart under licensing to see if your trade is applicable. If you're applying for the B or B2 classification, some applicants may qualify to waive the trade exam on the passing of the NSCB accredited examination. Please provide a copy of the NSCB transcript with your application. The submission of 4 work certificates and a resume is still required to showcase experience. All applicants must complete an applicant background disclosure form, the fingerprint background waiver form, and provide a copy of a valid driver's license or government-issued identification. All individuals on the license will be required to submit fingerprints. Fingerprint instructions will be provided to the email address on record after your application is submitted. Please do not submit fingerprints prior to the submittal of your application. Each contractor license has a monetary limit. This limit determines the maximum value of a project that a contractor can undertake for a single client on a single construction site or subdivision. Once the set amount is decided, this will determine the type of financials you will provide with your application. After receiving a license, contractors may request a higher monetary limit by submitting updated financial documentation that support the new requested limit. There are 2 types of increases: a single project limit increase or a permanent increase to the license limit. A single raise and limit is job specific and a one-time increase to allow you to bid on a project that is over that set limit. This can be requested up to 5 times in a 12-month period and must be received by the board at least 5 working days prior to the bid date. A permanent raise and limit will allow you to permanently increase your limit for future jobs set at that cap. Both of these applications will require new financial statements. Applicants must submit all business financial statements in US dollars. The type of financial statement required will depend on the monetary limit requested for the license. For example, if you're aiming for a limit of $10,000, you may submit a self-prepared financial statement using our board-approved form on our website or an accounting software in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. All CPA compiled statements must be current within 6 months from the date the application is received, while reviewed or audited financial statements prepared by an independent CPA are current within 1 year from the date the application is received. The Residential Recovery Fund provides limited financial compensation to homeowners who experience financial loss due to a licensed contractor's failure to meet contractual obligations. This fund is accessible for customers who meet the requirements and after all avenues of recovery have been exhausted. Contractors performing residential work must contribute to this fund when they receive or renew their license under NRS 624.470. The contribution amount is based on the contractor's monetary limit. Nevada law also requires a specific disclosure about the recovery fund to be included in residential contractual agreements detailing the owner's rights. In the scenario that a homeowner files a complaint against a residential recovery fund, Board staff will notify the contractor about the open investigation concerning the allegations. If a hearing is held, the board will consider all matter relevant to the complaint before issuing a decision. The contractor may be required to appear before the board to present evidence in support of or in defense of the claim. Any residential recovery fund fees paid as a result of an unlawful act by a licensed residential contractor must be reimbursed by the licensee. Contractors are responsible for reimbursing the fund for any claims awarded against their company. The statement below is required by Nevada law and must be included in all residential construction contracts pursuant to NRS 624.520. Please incorporate this language into your contracts and agreements with homeowners. If your business plans to perform work involving residential pools or spas, additional licensing requirements may apply under NRS 624.900 and NAC 624.695. Bond limits are determined by the type of license, monetary limit, and financial responsibility. The surety bond is a general requirement for contractors in Nevada. You may have the option of a cash bond with a service fee of $200 upon license renewal, as well as a residential improvement bond per Assembly Bill 39. A residential improvement bond is held solely for the protection of consumers in the amount of $100,000. This bond type is not mandatory. However, if engaging in residential improvements, contractors must abide by provisions of AB 39, Section 1, subsection 2G. Non-compliance with regulations is always subject to disciplinary action. AB 39 authorizes the Nevada State Contractors Board to establish regulations that require specific elements to be included in contracts for certain residential improvement projects. The primary purpose of this bill is to ensure there is a consistent, mandatory set of minimum requirements across all applicable contracts, helping protect both homeowners and contractors. It requires that certain key details be clearly outlined in contracts related to residential improvements. These required elements are further detailed in Section 1 of AB 39. Additionally, the bill places limits on upfront payments. Contractors are not allowed to request more than $1,000 or 10% of the total contract price, whichever amount is less, as an initial deposit before any work begins. AB 39 applies to contractors who engage in residential improvement projects. Overall, this legislation promotes transparency, fairness, and accountability within residential contracting. Assembly Bill 39 introduced additional requirements for contractors. Applicants are encouraged to review the full legislation on the Nevada State Contractors Board website. Before a contractor license can be issued, applicants must provide proof of workers' compensation insurance. If your business qualifies, you may instead submit an affidavit of exemption. Proof of coverage must also be provided again during each license renewal. At this stage, applicants should review all costs associated with the licensing process to ensure they're prepared for each requirement. Let's review the main steps in the process. First, register your business with the Nevada Secretary of State. Next, check for name similarities. Then choose the correct license classification and monetary limit. Identify your trade and management qualified individuals. Complete all background disclosures and fingerprinting forms. Prepare your financial statement. And finally, review your application carefully and submit it with a $300 application fee. If required, download exam study materials from PSI. If you have completed these steps, you are ready to submit your contractor license application. Once received, your application will be assigned to a licensing analyst. All applications are processed in date order received on a first-come, first-served basis. When your application is open for review, you may receive a written notice by mail, email, or both that will request for additional information and further directions. Your licensing analyst will be the main point of contact throughout the process. All requested information is required for the issuance of a license and are non-negotiable as they are mandated by statute or board policy. Applications may be withdrawn if required material is not submitted on time. Before submitting, take time to double-check your documents for accuracy, completeness, and proper signatures. Carefully reviewing your application can help prevent delays. Please be sure to respond promptly to your licensing analyst and be sure to check your spam or junk folders to avoid missing correspondence. There are several organizations that offer helpful resources for applicants. These include the Nevada Small Business Development Center, the Nevada Secretary of State, KSI Examination Services, and the Nevada Division of Industrial Relations. You can also find additional resources on our website for contractor tips, disclosure requirements, contract checklists, advertising rules, and complaint forms. If you have any questions during the application process, please contact the Nevada State Contractors Board for assistance. Our staff can help guide you through the requirements and support you through the licensing process. Thank you for taking the time to review this guide, and best of luck with your contractor license application.